Have you ever felt a surge of motivation, made a decision to change, and then, almost instantly, felt empty, tired, or uninterested? Not hours later, not days later, right after the decision. Psychology says this isn't laziness. It's your brain reacting to threat, not failure. And once you understand why motivation disappears after the decision, you'll stop blaming yourself and start working with your brain instead of against it. Most people think motivation fades because they weren't serious enough. But neuroscience shows something uncomfortable. The moment you decide to become someone new, your brain starts protecting the person you already are. Let's break down the 4 psychological reasons motivation collapses, right when you need it most. Dopamine crash. Motivation doesn't come from action. It comes from anticipation. When you imagine changing your life, your brain releases dopamine, the possibility chemical. You feel energized, hopeful, alive. But the moment you decide, anticipation ends. The brain says, okay, fantasy over. Now comes effort. Dopamine drops, energy drops, and motivation disappears. Not because you failed, but because the reward system already cashed out early. Identity threat activates resistance. Change isn't just behavioral, it's identity level. The brain asks, if we change, who are we no longer? The familiar self, even if unhappy, feels safe, predictable, known. So the moment you decide to change, your nervous system activates resistance. Procrastination, doubt, exhaustion, sudden disinterest. This isn't weakness. It's your brain defending familiarity. Brain mistakes clarity for completion. Here's a psychological trap most people fall into. Clarity feels like progress. When you decide what you're going to do, your brain gets a small sense of completion, even though nothing happened yet. That satisfaction tricks the mind into relaxing. Lower urgency, lower drive. Psychologists call this premature reward, when the brain feels done before effort begins. Fear disguised as loss of motivation. This is the hardest truth. Motivation often disappears because success feels threatening. Change means new expectations, new pressure, new visibility, new risk of failure. So the brain pulls motivation as a safety brake. If you don't try, you don't fail. You don't get judged. You don't lose control. What feels like no motivation is often fear protecting your self-image. So here's the reframe. Motivation disappearing after a decision doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain is doing its job, protecting identity, safety, and energy. The people who succeed aren't more motivated. They just expect a drop and move before motivation returns. They act while the brain is uncomfortable. They start small. They don't wait to feel ready. Because real change doesn't begin with motivation. It begins after it fades. If this explained a pattern you've been stuck in for years, you're not alone. Subscribe to the Human Circle. We break down the psychology behind motivation, self-sabotage, discipline, and identity, so you can stop fighting your mind and start understanding it. The next video might explain why you've been trying so hard and still feeling stuck.